In this video, I shall not be discussing the detailed resources needed for UGC NET. Rather, if you have more than 2 months to prepare, or if you are targeting JRF, then I would suggest you to go watch this interview on Delhi Knowledge Track by Dakshta Arora, who is one of the toppers of the June 2020 cycle. Her name is Dakshta Arora, Dakshta. I would share the link to the video in the description box as well. You can see her suggested resources on the screen right now as well. I would rather suggest you the resources to study from if you have less than 2 months to prepare and you are preparing on your own and not taking any coaching. So for paper 1, I would suggest that one book is sufficient. You can either go for the Pearson Publications book or Arihant's. I like the Pearson's book, which is written by KVS Madan. So I followed that one. Either go for that one or the Arihant's. Apart from this, I would suggest you to follow Talveer Singh's YouTube channel and also the Telegram channel. He is the one-stop solution for paper 1, I would say. His YouTube and Telegram channel's name is Commerce Net Achievers. COMMERCENET So apart from these, the previous year questions and the previous year's questions are very important resources. So I would suggest that 3 resources are needed for paper 1. One is Talveer Singh's YouTube channel, and second is the previous year's questions, which you will be getting from his Telegram channels as well, and the third is KVS Madan's book. I would discuss how to utilize these resources in my next video. For paper 2, I would suggest that there is no one single one-stop resource like you have for this paper like you have for paper 1. So the only essential resource is the previous year's question paper. There is no other essential resource. You can study from anywhere you like. Now for the first 4 units, that are drama, poetry, fiction and short story, and non-fictional prose, follow any one history of English literature book. The smaller the better, I think, because you would get more time to revise. Try to understand the nerve of each period, starting from the old and medieval period to the post-colonial and post-modernist period. So I followed the Routledge's one, authored by Rolla Carter and John McRae, but I used to study selectively. Like whenever I would see that this question has come from in this year, I would go and read around that topic. So it's best to follow the book that you have already studied in your graduation and postgrad. Here only I studied the British part though, and left the other parts like the American English and the African English, the Canadian English, the Australian English. I did not prepare for these literatures at all. Like I left them completely because I knew that I had little time to prepare. Here I only studied the British part, and these two also from mainly because I had taken this Routledge Publications book alongside my graduation years as well. So I had read that one time, no completely cover to cover either, but I had some idea about the book. So the other parts like the American and other African literatures, I had some idea from my graduation and postgrad studies, but I did not go through them again. I just left them. You can see the Indian literature part also for a while, but again I don't think that it yields much result consistently. Questions come on Indian literature as well at times. So if you want to do something apart from the British literature, you can go for the Indian literature, I would suggest. The next unit, the 5th unit, is the language, theories and pedagogy. This is a high yielding topic. Like if you study for some time the first 4 units and if you give similar amount of time for the 5th unit, I would suggest, I would say that you would get much more marks in the fifth unit. So I did selective study of the Larson, Freeman and Anderson's book titled Techniques and Principles in Language Teaching. To understand what you have to study from here, look at the PYQs. Then I had downloaded this B.Ed material of Maulana Azad National Urdu University, Hyderabad. Only the second chapter is useful for our exam, which is titled Different Approaches, Theories to Language Learning and Teaching by Dr. D. Vishwa Prasad. This is not an essential material at all. I just followed it for my own understanding. You can completely skip it and see from other places of your choice if you are lacking understanding of some topic from this unit. The sixth unit is History of English in India. I had generated special interest in this field, so I had studied this whole book by N. Krishnaswamy and Lalita Krishnaswamy, but I won't suggest to you to read the whole book, but if you open the book, you will find that there are these chapters on Macaulay's Minute, Wood's Dispatch, Governments of India Policies on Education in the post-independence era. Read these main topics. These are the topics that come in the exams consistently. You can analyze the previous year's questions and know that what you have to study from this section. Also study more on these policies from other sources also to get the understanding of these policies. You can also cover the NEP 2020 because that can also come in this under this unit. The next unit is the cultural studies. All the available books I found on cultural studies were very bulky, so I decided not to study any specific book for this, but rather I watched a lot of videos on YouTube. If you go on YouTube, you will find that there are a lot of good quality videos produced by NPTEL and other such. Also some IITs are also producing some good content on humanities subjects. So or some net specific channels are also have also produced some of these good videos on cultural studies, like Kalyani Valath ma'am's videos are good. Like if you can read some book from take a cursory glance, but I won't suggest you to read all the topics either. Just know what are the topics that are come under this cultural studies, and when you see the previous, when you see the previous year's question paper, you know where these topics fit in, where these questions fit in under these topics. So that's all I think for the cultural studies. The next units are 8th and 9th unit are literary criticism and literary theory. So like the first 4 units, whatever you have studied in your graduation and undergrad and postgrad studies should suffice. I had studied the M.A.R. Habib and Peter Barry books for these 2 sections in my undergrad studies itself. So I brushed them up with the PYQs keeping beside me. I certainly did not sit to study the whole book cover to cover, because only the topics that have been asked should be seen from these books and not all what have been covered in these books. The final topic is research methods. So I studied this book by M.P. Sinha, which is a small book of some 70 pages long. So I read it very fast. I took a cursory glance of this book so that I am familiar with all the topics that have been, all the terminologies coming under this section. But I had some prior experience of writing research papers, so so the basic exposure was there for me. I study this book if you need some understanding of the terminologies, but if you don't understand this book, I'd suggest you to Google the topics and also the topics that have been asked in previous year's questions. You can directly Google them, and that should give you a good understanding on what is being asked. Apart from these main 10 units that have been given in the syllabus itself, there would be questions on figures of speech, literary terms. There would be questions on comprehension. So for the figures of speech and literary terms, my university studies was good enough, so I had basic exposure to this. So I did not read much for these, but I just turned a few pages of M.H. Abrams. So I would not suggest you to go through this book if you have less than 2 months. So I followed a few YouTube channels as resources. So I would like to, for the paper 2, I had suggested Talveer Singh sir's YouTube channel for paper 1. So paper 2, I would suggest that Kalyani Valat's channel, Arpita Karwa's channel, Nakul Grover's and Dana Multitasker's channels. These are the few channels that are doing good on YouTube. So see these and see whatever you like and follow that, because see, I knew that I won't be having much time for this exam. I had very little time to prepare for this, so I relied mostly on the smart resources like YouTube channels or websites. So I did keep track on the sources that I have been following in my grads and post-grad studies, like Lit Chart, Super Summary, Cliff Notes, Study Lovers. All these sources were there also in the net preparation. So all these come handy, very handy for your net preparation, because you don't have to go through everything that is given on these topics on a particular book. They produce materials mostly based on what is being asked on the exam. So they do the preliminary study that you should be doing, the preliminary research of what is coming and what may come and what may not. So try to recapitulate all the things that you have studied in your graduation and post-graduation studies, then see the syllabus and the previous year's questions, and keep these resources that I mentioned beside you. That should, I think, suffice. So the trick for the paper 1 and paper 2's resources is to keep minimum books on the study table and read selectively. For the selection of what you need to study and what you should leave, the previous year's questions and the syllabus should help. Reading any book, I would suggest cover to cover is not suggested. Even the guidebooks that are there should not be read completely. You should understand what is good quality material given there from the previous year's questions, and leave the materials that are not that essential. So you must go through only that must be read and cover most of the topics. You should not leave any topic at all.